Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Opti TV. My name is Alberto, and today we're bringing you another episode of Opti TV Presents. Our guest today is Fede Donzino out of Port Credit Yacht Club over there in Toronto. Fede is one of the coaches who's been making a lot of waves over there in the Canadian Opti sailing world, so we're going to check in with him and see how he got started, what he thinks about the class, and more. Before we get into this next episode, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel because it helps the Opti TV project tremendously. Let's do it. So Fede, thanks for joining me on Opti TV. I'm glad to have you on, and before we get into it, I just want to introduce people to you a little bit in case they don't know of you. You're the head Opti coach at Port Credit Yacht Club in Toronto. You sailed Optis when you were a kid. You achieved some success at Optis when you were a kid, and you're part of a really, really strong tradition over there in Argentina for Opti sailing. First questions first. How are you doing? Is it cold up there in Canada?
So thank you very much, Alberto, for this opportunity. But we're here and we're trying to keep our motivation on place.
So Fede, how did you get into sailing? What kind of brought you into it?
I was always a guy that went to swimming lessons. My mom always put me on swimming lessons, like most of you guys for sure. And then I had a amazing grandfather that had a boat on those days. And I remember that I was 5 years old and I was always waiting for that weekend to go into the water with him and sail around the river. So one day he said, "Hey, why don't you try going to this sailing school?" And my parents were like, "Well, could be a great opportunity for him to start and to get this sport as one of his main sports." So during all my Opti career, I always also been involved in tennis and in soccer because I'm from Argentina and I really enjoy soccer as well. So I think that was the main purpose of my journey starting in the Opti. And I went through different stages as green fleet, as development team, as high performance, and I enjoy every single process of it. I had the chance to represent Argentina in 3 different IOT events, and I think it was a great opportunity for me to give my country what means to represent them and getting ready for the next level.
So which 3 events were those?
So I went to South Americans in Peru, Caracas in 2008. Then I went to Salinas, Ecuador in 2009. And then I finished in 2010 in Dominican Republic. My results were quite good, I think. My first South Americans, I finished 20th overall. My second one, I finished 21st. And my last North Americans, I finished 10th. There was a progression in me and I really enjoy, and I was really passionate about the sport. So it was quite nice to represent my country and to be able to travel in some part of the world.
I think that's an experience that a lot of kids want to have, is that international racing experience with the Continental Championships. But with all of that high level Opti sailing experience, how did you bring that into coaching? What made you want to get into Opti coaching?
So after campaigning in my I-40 career and having some issues on my success, I realized that I had this really keen opportunity to coach one of the sailors that I knew that were on my club. So I started realizing that I was able to transmit all my concepts to somebody else. And with all my knowledge, I started realizing that this was something really fun, because I was not only giving all my experience, but I was also watching somebody having all that super nice concepts run into their sailing, and me being part of that transition for them, that really caught my attention. So that's why I now have the chance to represent a country as Canada in different IOT events, and I also have the chance to be part of a team here in the Port Credit Yacht Club in Toronto, and it's always a really good time when I have new kids joining my team, and even having kids that I know that they are really good sailors, but I still have the chance to give them some of my experience into their sailing.
That I think is something that every coach lives for. That that moment where they can, how do I put it, coalesce their knowledge base into an easily digestible form, so that their sailors can take that and find their success. So you're known as a very studious and very methodical coach. What's your philosophy behind the work that you do training sailors up there in Canada?
So I think first of all that there's need to be a communication between the coach and the sailor. I think that that's first of all is the main thing, because if we don't have a good communication, then we won't be able to transmit the concepts. Second of all, I always like to go with a camera in the water and being able to show on my different videos, because I think that the main thing in a boat, first of all, is to be good in maneuvers, making sure that you know every single part of your boat, having to push the limits of maybe capsizing or maybe going to the water after attack, because that's the way in which you will be able to start getting the other concepts ready. Of course, it's something that it's really difficult to always succeed in your trainings, but as well having fun, learning, and enjoying that day on the water is one of my main three goals in order to have good sailors around me.
Well said. I think that that kind of approach has found you, a lot of success up there in Canada, and from what I understand, PCYC is really taking off with their Opti program. But tell me, where do you see the Canadian Opti class right now? Where do you think it could go in the future?
So that's a really good question. These last 5 years working here in Canada, I always put myself as trying to progress not only my club, myself, but also the sailing youth community. I always try to push harder and harder every single training. So I think that right now we are in a situation in which probably we are not the top 20 countries of the world, but I think that we're gonna reach really good goals in the North Americans or in the South Americans. I always think that as a coach, you need to go from low to high. Your expectations cannot be high when you don't have a really good training method, and you need to know that this is a really long term. So getting more into your question, I think that I believe that we will be able to be a well-known country, but it needs to take all the different levels and step in order to make this entire foundation the best of all. On the other hand, I really want my sailors to continue with the sailing, right? So I think that in order to be a good coach is not only having the top kids around you, but also is to make sure that when they transition into another boat, they have all those concepts really, really good. So when they go into another boat, they will be able to get all these concepts of maybe tactics of what an Opti can do. That's one of the bigger class known. And then start studying more technical things about a laser, an I-420, a Club 420, or a 29er. So I think that those are the main things that I prioritize, and I think that we are right now in Canada.
So, do you think that the Opti class is poised to provide a growth, a pipeline into other classes? In sailing, is the Opti class growing in Canada?
So yeah, right now we are working really hard with the CODA members, and we have one of the other known Opti TV members that is called Agustin Ferrario. He's working really hard with us, trying to provide all the feedback to the coaches and trying this to go really high. So yeah, I think that we are leveling it up not only in Ontario but also in all the other different provinces. and we're working really good as a team. So I'm really back from that fans of trying to work as a team. So yeah, I think that we are leveling up all our sailors.
Well, I think the results show that because, I mean, like you said, although Canada's not in the top 20 countries worldwide yet, you know, every regatta that I've seen Canadian kids at, they're doing really well. So I think you guys have been doing an amazing job with that kind of community-based approach up there. But Fede, let me ask you, you know, you've been coaching for a relatively short time, but you've been sailing for a long time. So how do you see sailing having changed since your Opti days?
Well, I think that the main things that change is the technical part, in which, as you said before, I'm pretty. I think that I really like that side. I think that the tacks, the maneuvers itself, changed a lot during my days. I think that also the mental part changed a lot. That's mainly because on my days, even though I have the chance to go into a phone, that was not something really that nowadays as a coaches we need to be really sure that our sailors not with the phone while we are on our debrief or when we're in our morning meetings. The other thing that definitely changed was the physical side of a sailor. I think that nowadays everybody's getting more into that stage in which the physical part is being so important that at least all my sailors, I try to keep them in a really high physical side. On my time, that was not something that was really important, or your coaches were not really telling you about that. But yeah, as well, I think that the coaching also changed a lot because as a coach, what I want to transmit my sailors was all the part that I felt that my coaches were not able to give me. Uh, so I think that as a coach, you always evolved. And that's one of the other super important things that I consider myself somebody who really likes this job, right? Because you transmit not only your concepts, but you also give the kids what you were not able to have when you were on their same place.
I read you loud and clear, Fede. You know, I myself started a little later in life with the sport, and I never had a coach. And you know, I just think about, you know, sometimes where I would be if I would have had the level of coaching that some of these kids are getting at Opti age. You know, back when I was sailing in college. But that's not really here nor there. You know, the important thing is that, you know, the level of sailing has gone up because of the presence of coaches and coaching at you know, a pretty professional level, I would say. But to turn that on its head, you know, Fede, do you see, or do you worry about the presence of such professionalized coaching in only some places?
Well, I think that of course that's always something tricky for the clubs. As you just said before, there's a big difference when coaches are in clubs. You could see not only on the results, but you can also see them on land, how they react through the sales, how they're taking care of their equipment. That's a super important stage. So I think that yes, there is a problem when clubs they don't have maybe the right coaching in order to provide for the sailors. And you can see it right away on any US nationals or any Canadian nationals. You could see it right away. But I think that as well, that at least what we are trying to do in Canada, that this is one of the main thing is I am trying my best to give all these other coaches that maybe they didn't have the possibility. I'm trying to give them the tools, and I'm trying to give them the guidance in order to become uh, somebody like me or somebody like any other coach that has the chances to be known in their country. So I think that if we start from the base that as a known coach, you give somebody else the chance, I think that we will be able to connect with all the other ones, and the knowledge will be spread around, and we'll be able to have better coaching in order to have better sailors.
Well, I think spot on with those comments there. You know, I think you touched on a very interesting subject, especially at this time. You know, I think everybody on the macro scale can benefit from cooperation. And at least in my opinion, as the class that's kind of fostering sailing and sailors at the large scale, the Opti class really is about, creating sailors that are going to be sailing for the rest of their life. Kind of switching gears here a little bit. I don't think we've gotten into this with any coach that we've had here so far. There's a lot of different places you can go to in the world. You can sail. What's your favorite regatta to go to?
Wow, that's a really hard question. I believe that the best venue is Garda. I think that that lake has something special. I don't know if it's because of the way of the wind was or about the small village that is around, but for the ones who have the chance to go, you can say that that's one of the best places and where the mecca of all these new foiling generations and all these new boats are coming up.
You're not the first person we've had on to say that. So everyone that's watching, go to Garda. So Fede, we've been talking a lot about your experiences and, the current state of Canadian Opti affairs. How's the return to sailing looking like for you guys?
So at the moment, of course, we are monitoring the situation with our province. So I think that we will be coming back on the water. It's going to be slowly. But the main thing with all this is to be aware and have conscience of how we can become not only a better human being, but also how to start reconnecting with our families, our members. So I think that going sailing wise, I think that we're gonna be going in the water in Canada probably by the end of June, half June, but there's gonna be a lot of limitations. So of course, social distancing is one of the main things that all governments have been saying through the last 2 months. And I think that that's true. And we need to make sure we are social distancing. But with efforts, with trying out our best over this and keeping the motivation of our sailors, I think it's going to be one of the main keys in order to go back to the water. And as I said before, having a plan. I'm writing every day all the ideas I have in my head. I'm trying to copy from other places or other clubs. So I'm trying my best always to stay positive and knowing that I will be on the water soon. So it's just hope and keeping yourself safe and healthy.
It's going to be interesting to see how things develop, but we wish all of Canada well and hope you guys stay safe. What would you say to all those kids that are watching that wish that they could be out on their Opti right now, but they can't yet?
So I think, guys, that we have a tool that is super and there is a lot of things on the internet in which we can keep on studying our sport. I will recommend you to follow this page, to be sure you click on your subscribe on the YouTube channel, because there's gonna be a lot of videos coming up soon for you guys. And I think as well that keeping our health, our mental and our physical part is gonna be one of the most important things. So there is tons of apps in which you can see your fitness. There is tons of things that you can be reading in order to keep your mental health good, and keep motivated. Ask your coaches if they have any videos about you, if they can talk about anything that you believe, and always try to learn from this. This is an experience, and this is the way I put this. This is a regatta, and we have 12 races in which we need to be mentally strong. Every race counts. Every day counts. And if we are sure that our mind is on the right setup, we will be able to keep this as safety and as fast as possible. But as I said, it's a regatta. So keep your motivations up.
So Fede, I want to say thank you for those inspiring words. I think that the kids that are watching are gonna take some hope and really keep their motivations up, because I do agree that that's what's really, really most important right now. And I also want to say thanks for taking the time to chat with me, and we'll see you out on the water.
Absolutely, guys. And if you have any questions when you see me, just pass by and ask me anything, because I'm ready to give all my experience to you guys. So thank you very much, Opti TV, for this interview. I really enjoyed, and hope to see you in the water. Ciao.
So what do you guys think? I thought the interview was pretty interesting, and you guys are going to be able to also catch this interview over on Instagram as well, so make sure you're going over there and following our page. I'd like to take a moment to say thank you to all those who have been supporting the project so far. It really means a lot to me and the ones who are working with me. We are really excited to bring you guys even more content and also take the next steps into what will be a very interesting summer for us. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to keep seeing more great Opti content. This has been Alberto for Opti TV. Argentina, Canada, USA. It's like it's all in one.